is made queer, no need to fear. Be tuned, your mind expands today. Summa made simple, learn in a fun way.
Have you ever been on social media, most likely a platform like LinkedIn, and you saw someone saying, hey, I just got a promotion, or hey, I just won this award, hashtag humbled, hashtag blessed, and you sort of got a little bit put off and sort of rolled your eyes because, the term is the humble bragging. The reason why that sort of likely rubbed you up the wrong way is because there was something about that which struck you as being a little bit off the mark. And that's what we're going to be discussing in this episode. We'll be discussing the virtue of magnanimity, which is all about esteem and recognition, the desire for which is natural to human beings. We all have this desire to seek esteem and recognition, but it's important that it actually be controlled or guided by our thought. And why this matters, why the virtue of magnanimity, the virtue by which we apply our thinking and our rational mind to our desire for honor and esteem and recognition, why this matters is because every human being, all of us have this innate desire for esteem and recognition and honor. It sort of comes built in. If you were to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that pyramid is very instructive about what human desires are and also about virtues and vices. Because if you were to look at it from the very top, at the highest level, the desire for self-actualization, all of us have a desire for self-actualization. But if that desire is not controlled or guided by thought, where we ask ourselves, why does this exist? It can degenerate into pride. Beneath that, we have the desire for self-esteem and recognition and honor. If we don't apply our mind to that desire, then it can degenerate into wild ambition or vainglory. Beneath that, you have the desire for love and belonging. When the desire for love and belonging is not, when we don't think about why do I have this desire for love and belonging and let my thoughts guide that desire, it degenerates into lust. Beneath that, we have a desire for safety and security. Why did I take it from the top and not the bottom? Beneath that, we have a desire for safety and security. And if that desire is not controlled by our thinking, again, it degenerates into avarice or greed, where we just want more and more and more and more and more. I want more money. I want to become a trillionaire. And then we don't ask ourselves, so I become a trillionaire and then what? What's going to happen to that money when I die? Like, what's the point? And beneath that, right at the base level of that hierarchy of needs of Maslow, you have the desire for basic needs, food, clothing, shelter. And if that is not tempered by reason, where we ask ourselves, okay, why do I eat, for example, then that can degenerate into gluttony. And at all those levels, again, for all those vices which we've mentioned, you also have the corresponding virtues. So these things are universal to human beings. Every human being has all of these things at play within them. And that's why this discussion around honor is important, so that we don't want to degenerate into the kind of person who is just like has crazy ambition or is all about me. I have to shine. I have to be in the spotlight. Everyone has to recognize me, which is called vainglory. But there are also some other interesting vices around this desire for self-esteem and recognition in terms of a person who just does not care about esteem and recognition or honor, and that's the vice of pusillanimity. But we're going to get to that later. A very important part of the context to establish here is first and foremost to just debunk the myth that our happiness consists in honor. Because one of the reasons why, people would go out of their way to seek esteem, to seek recognition, to be known, to be honored, is because there's something within us that makes us think, if I win that award, if I get that recognition, if I get that kind of respect from people, then it's going to make me really happy. And in one of the articles which Aquinas has in the Summa Theologica precisely deals with this. It's in a different section of the book. It's in the first part of the second part, and it's the second question where he asks the things in which man's happiness consists. This article in the Summa is brilliant. Let me just read you the the different subtopics it goes through, right? And you'll just see how it's so illuminating. Does happiness consist in wealth? Does it consist in honor? Does it consist in fame or glory? Does it consist in power? Does it consist in any physical good, bodily good? Does it consist in any pleasure? Does it consist in any good of the soul? And does it consist in any created good? He just goes through all those things which we think are going to make us happy. And he discusses, does fame make us happy or not? Spoiler, he says it not. And he gives the reason why. Does wealth make us happy or not? He gives the reason why it doesn't. Does honor make us happy or not? And he gives the reason why it doesn't. And I want to jump into that really quickly because it's really important to give us the context for the next discussion of this article about magnanimity, whether magnanimity consists in honor. So we're looking at question 2 of Article 1 of question 2 of the first part of the second part. And this article asks whether man's happiness consists in honor. And he says, it would seem that man's happiness consists in honors, for happiness is, or bliss is the reward of virtue, as the philosopher says. Now, that point is important because we've just been given there a definition of what honor, esteem, or recognition is. What is it about? It's in reward of virtue. It's in a reward of recognizing the excellence that is in someone else. But honor, more than anything else, seems to be that by which virtue is rewarded, as the philosopher says. Therefore, happiness consists especially in honor. Objection 2. Further, that which belongs to God and to persons of great excellence seems especially to be happiness, which is the perfect good. But that is honor, as the philosopher says. Moreover, the apostle, whenever he says the apostle, he's referring to St. Paul the apostle. Moreover, the apostle says in 1 Timothy 1 verse 17, to the only God be honor and glory. Therefore, happiness does consist in honor. So he's giving all the objections where someone would say, no, if I want to be happy, I'll find happiness in honor, in esteem and recognition from people. That's what's going to give me happiness. So he basically is putting forward all the arguments that would prop up that position. Objection 3. Further, that which man desires above all is happiness, but nothing seems more desirable to man than honor, since man suffers loss in all other things, lest he should suffer loss of honor. So in other words, a human being is willing to lose everything except to lose, just so as not to lose his good name. He's willing to lose everything so long as he does not lose his good name. That's what this point is referring to. Since man suffers loss in all other things, lest he should suffer loss of honor. Therefore, happiness consists in honor. On the contrary, this is now Aquinas rebutting all those previous arguments. On the contrary, happiness is in the happy. Happiness, this is important. It sounds like a simple little dumb phrase, but it's really important, and we shall unpack why shortly. Happiness is in the happy, but honor is not in the honored, but rather in him who honors, and who offers deference or respect to the person honored, as the philosopher says. Therefore, happiness does not consist in honor. He goes on to unpack this. He says, I answer that it is impossible for happiness to consist in honor. For honor is given to a person on account of some excellence in them, and consequently, it is a sign and attestation or proof or evidence of the excellence that is in the person honored. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We only honor someone because of something fantastic that they've done, something fantastic that is in them. Now, a man's excellence, a person's excellence. So every time he says man, remember this is like written in the 12th century, so he's not trying to be misogynist or anything. It's just the way people used to write back then. Now, a man's excellence is in proportion, especially to his happiness, which is man's perfect good, and it's in proportion to the parts of that happiness. In other words, those goods by which he has a certain share of happiness. What does he mean by this? A man's excellence is in proportion especially to his happiness, meaning that the cause of happiness is the excellence which we have inside of us, and all the things which come as a result of that excellence inside of us, and the results of that excellence inside of us remain within us. That's what it means. And therefore, honor can result from happiness, but happiness cannot principally consist therein. In summary, he's saying, when we give esteem and respect and recognition and honor to someone and say, oh, this guy is fantastic, give him this award, give him this promotion, whatever, the reason is because of an excellence that is inside that person. And as a consequence of that excellence, that fantastic thing that is inside that person, we then give him honor. But that honor is in the people who are respecting that person. That honor is not in that person himself. And his first point then becomes very important. He starts by saying happiness is in the happy. Like the thing that happiness is something you carry within you. Happiness is inside of you. It's intrinsic. It's inside. It cannot be outside. That just goes by the definition of happiness, something you carry within yourself. So it doesn't make sense that you would then think that your happiness can come from outside of you. It's a very important point to understand, and it leads us on to the next question that, okay, so we have this desire for honor. We'll do anything so that our good name, our reputation the good name is not dragged through the mud. We will do anything. So it stands to reason, because we've got this natural desire for honor and for respect and esteem and recognition, it stands to reason that it should be guided by reason. It stands to reason that you should be guided by reason. I know tautology. Anyway, it should be guided by reason. And that's what the virtue of magnanimity is all about. It's applying reason to this desire, this drive we have for honor. And this is the next question we're going into. Question 129 of magnanimity. So now we've jumped to a different book. Remember that when we were looking at the first part of the second part, now we're looking at the second part of the second part. It's like a different book, but those two are connected. It was important that we set up that context of the question around honor. So this question asks whether magnanimity is about honors. In other words, it's sort of asking, why should there be a virtue that concerns itself with this desire for honors? Now, I'll skip over all of the objections except the third one, because the third one is the one which really concerns us the most. And I won't even go into I answer that, but I'll just dwell on this objection. Why? Because I think it's the most relevant part of this article for the man on the street. You see, the average person, I even just started, the example I gave of LinkedIn and people humble bragging, we've got this sense, there's always like a sixth sense within us that it's not a good idea to like have this hankering after awards and recognition and the esteem of people around us. It's not a good idea to make this the most important thing in our lives and to go for it. In fact, isn't it humility to sort of like want to hide and disappear and not be seen and not be noticed and no one should pay any attention to us? Isn't that a virtue? Isn't that like a good thing to not want to be seen by and recognized and to just like sort of like blend into the furniture wherever we are? That's what this third objection asks. Further, the nature of magnanimity seems to regard pursuit rather than avoidance. For a man is said to be magnanimous because he tends to great things. But the virtuous are praised not for desiring honors, but for shunning them. Therefore, magnanimity is not about honors. And his reply to that objection is, those who are worthy of praise. So basically, okay, before he gets to that reply, he speaks about what magnanimity is and that it has to do with honors. I won't go into that. I'll just skip to the reply to this objection because I think it's the objection which most people would make when they think of honors, and it sort of like puts them off. They're like, nah, man, it doesn't feel right for me to just be chasing after honor and esteem and recognition and plaudits and yeah, nah. In fact, that's not even a Christian thing to do, right? Wrong. That objection, let me recap. But the virtuous are praised not for desiring honors, but for shunning them. Therefore, magnanimity is not about honors. His reply to that objection is, those are worthy of praise who despise riches in such a way as to do nothing unbecoming, as to do nothing wrong, in order to obtain them, nor have too great a desire for them. If, however, one were to despise honors, so as not to care to do what is worthy of honor, this would be deserving of blame. Accordingly, magnanimity is about honors in the sense that a man strives to do what is deserving of honor, yet not so as to think much of the honor accorded by man. That's the point. Remember, we said that virtue is about finding a middle ground between two extremes. And this is precisely what this point is alluding to, that we do have this desire for honor. It's built into us, and it's built into us by God for good reason. However, we have to do what is striving, what we have to strive to do what is deserving of honor, yet without thinking much about that honor. You see that sort of, it's like there's a tension between two things. We strive to do what is deserving of honor, and yet we don't obsess about that honor in and of itself. We don't get obsessed about it. We don't throw our toys out the cot when we are not honored or esteemed or recognized. At the same time, we don't do things which are unbecoming. We don't do things which are wrong. We won't go and steal our colleagues' work and pass it off as our own so that we get the credit for it. We won't do such things for the sake of honor. That's what magnanimity is about. So it's taking this desire which God gave us for honors and esteem and recognition and using it and actually directing it towards God. And that's what he says in the body of the article, where he says, on the contrary, magnanimity is about honor and dishonor. And one of the points where Jesus Christ speaks about magnanimity is when he says, no one lights a lamp and puts it under a bushel basket. He'll put it on top of a hill. So I'm paraphrasing, sorry, might not get the quote exactly right. But it's that idea that let your light so shine before men that they may give glory to your Father in heaven. Let your light so shine before men that they may give glory to your Father in heaven. That's a reference to this virtue of magnanimity. And that's what Aquinas speaks about in the body of this article, where he says, on the contrary, the philosopher says that magnanimity is about honor and dishonor. I answer that. He goes into a bit of detail. I'll try and go over it really, really quickly. Magnanimity by its very name denotes stretching forth of the mind to great things. It comes from two words, magna, greatness, anima, mind. So a great mind. Now, virtue bears a relationship to two things. First, to the matter about which is the field of that virtue's activity. Second, to its proper action, which consists in the right use of that matter. And since a virtuous habit is named chiefly from its action, a man is said to be magnanimous chiefly because he is minded to do some great thing. That's not the main point. We're getting to the main point now. Now, an act may be called great in two ways. In one way, proportionately, that's in comparison to other actions, and in another way, absolutely, in and of itself. An act may be called great proportionately, in other words, compared to other actions, even if it consists in the use of some small or ordinary thing, if, for instance, one make a very good use of it. But an act is simply and absolutely great when it consists in the best use of the greatest thing. So let me give you an example. I mean, you could say that maybe a stay-at-home mom is making lunch for the kids, right? That action of making lunch for the kids, it's small and it's ordinary, but it can be called great if it consists in, if she makes that lunch very, very well and puts her entire heart and all her soul and all her love and all her affection into doing that. She transforms that small act into an ordinary great act. So that's an act that can be called great proportionately. But an act in and of itself can also be called great when it consists in the best use of the greatest thing. So what's the best use of the greatest thing? Now, that's what he's going to explain shortly. The things which come into man's use are external things. And among these, honor is the greatest simply. Honor is the greatest thing that we can get in and of itself. For two reasons. Both because it is the most akin to virtue. It's the thing which is most close to virtue. Why? Because people give other people honor, esteem, and recognition for an excellence which is within that other person. And that excellence is normally virtue. And that's what it means. Since it is an attestation to a person's virtue, as stated above, and because it is offered to God and to the best. So that's what it means. An act is simply and absolutely great when it consists in the best use of the greatest thing. The greatest thing we can have on earth is honor. The best use we can make of it is giving it to God. That is what magnanimity is about. This is what Jesus Christ meant when he said, "Let your light so shine before men that they may give glory to your Father in heaven." That's the virtue of magnanimity.